Okay, picture this. You're a truck driver, and you're dealing with chronic pain. You find a CBD product that seems perfect. It's advertised as having 0% THC, so it's totally safe for your job. You take it, hoping for some relief. Then, a few weeks later, you get hit with a random drug test, and you fail. Just like that, your career is over. Now, this isn't some made-up story. This is exactly what happened to one man, and it kicked off a legal fight that took a law meant for mobsters all the way to the Supreme Court.
So let's dive into the timeline for Douglas Horne, because it all happened incredibly fast. It starts in 2012 when a truck accident leaves him with chronic pain. He's looking for a safe way to deal with it and starts taking a CBD tincture called Dixie-X, which is, again, marketed as completely THC-free. But just a short while later, bam, a random drug test comes back positive for THC. And the result? He loses his job. This one series of events spirals into a legal battle that would go on for more than a decade.
All right, to really get this case, we have to start with the promise that was made to Horne. It was a simple promise of safe pain relief, but it turned into a career-ending problem.
You see, Horne was in a really tough spot. He needed to manage his pain, but as a commercial truck driver, he absolutely could not have any THC in his system. I mean, it would cost him his entire livelihood. So when he found this product from a company called Medical Marijuana Incorporated, it felt like the perfect solution, a natural alternative with none of the risk.
And this quote right here was the heart of it all. This was the promise. The company's marketing, their website, even their customer service reps all pushed the exact same message. Dixie-X was non-psychoactive and 100% free of THC. This wasn't just some minor detail. It was the reason Horne felt safe enough to use the product in the first place.
Well, that promise was broken. To his absolute shock, Horne tested positive for THC. Then, his employer told him he had to enter a substance abuse program. He refused. I mean, from his perspective, why would he? Going through with it would be like admitting he'd done something wrong, that he'd knowingly used drugs, which he was adamant he hadn't. So, he was fired. His search for safe pain relief cost him everything.
But Horne's story doesn't stop there. Facing the loss of his career over a product he was told was safe, he decided to fight back. And the legal tool he and his lawyers chose, well, it was a very powerful and pretty unconventional weapon.
He sued under the RICO Act. Now, I know what you're thinking. When you hear RICO, you probably think of the mafia, right? Organized crime. And you're not wrong. That's what the law was designed for. It's this super heavy-duty law that lets victims of a pattern of criminal activity sue for triple damages. So, yeah, a pretty surprising choice for a lawsuit over a consumer product.
So, how did they make it work? Horne's legal team got creative. They argued that the company's false 0% THC advertising wasn't just a simple mistake. No, they called it mail and wire fraud. And because the company allegedly did this over and over again, online in shipments, it formed a pattern of racketeering activity. And the direct result of that pattern? An injury to his business. In other words, the loss of his job. Now, this is where things get really interesting. This unique use of the RICO Act created a huge legal question, a real sticking point that was so tricky the lower courts couldn't agree on an answer, and that's what punted this whole thing up to the Supreme Court. And here is that central question. The company's argument was this: Horne's job loss only happened because of a personal injury, the unwanted THC entering his body. And since RICO doesn't cover personal injuries, his case should be thrown out. So the question becomes, can you sue under RICO for a business loss if it was caused by a personal injury? And wow, you can see just how divided the courts were. The first court to hear the case, the district court, sided with the company. They said, nope, the job loss comes from a personal injury, so RICO is out. But then, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals looked at it and said, yes, he was injured in his business when he was fired. It doesn't matter what caused it. This disagreement created what's known as a circuit split, which is basically a red flag that tells the Supreme Court, hey, we need you to step in and settle this. So, with the lower courts at a stalemate, the stage was set for the final act in this long legal drama. After years and years of fighting, Horne's case finally landed in front of the 9 justices of the Supreme Court for a final answer. And their answer was a loud and clear yes. The Supreme Court sided with the Second Circuit. They ruled that a person absolutely can sue under RICO for a business loss, even if that loss was the result of a personal injury.
This quote right from the majority opinion really says it all. The court put it plainly. The law lets you sue for business or property loss. Full stop.
the chain of events that led to that loss doesn't automatically kick your case out of court.
Okay, so the Supreme Court said yes. But to really get why this decision is such a big deal, we need to decode their logic. How did they get there? Well, believe it or not, it all boiled down to the definition of one single, very simple word.
The entire case really hung on the word injured. The company pushed for this very technical, legal jargon definition, arguing it meant an invasion of a legal right. But the Supreme Court just wasn't buying it. They went with a much simpler, common-sense approach. They said injured just means what you think it means in everyday conversation, to be harmed or damaged.
To make it super clear, the court used this fantastic analogy. Think about a gas station owner who gets beaten up during a robbery. He can't sue the robbers under RICO for his medical bills or his pain and suffering. That's a personal injury. But if those injuries are so bad that he's forced to shut down his gas station for good, he can sue under RICO for the loss of his business. You see the difference? The law is focused on the type of harm you're suing for, not necessarily the thing that caused it.
Now, it's important to know this wasn't a unanimous decision. In his dissent, Justice Kavanaugh gave a pretty serious warning. He argued that this ruling could open the floodgates. It could let all sorts of traditional, state-level personal injury cases, like car accidents or defective product lawsuits, suddenly become massive federal RICO cases with triple damages. And he argued that's something Congress never, ever intended.
So, the Supreme Court has spoken. What now? What's the ripple effect of this decision, both for Douglas Horne himself and for the future of these kinds of lawsuits in America?
And this is a really critical point to understand. Horne has not won his case yet. All the Supreme Court did was give him a green light. They said his lawsuit can move forward. Now he has to go back down to the lower courts and actually prove that the company's fraud was the direct cause of him losing his job. And as the court itself pointed out, that could still be a very, very tough thing to prove.
So this ruling definitely opens a new door for future lawsuits. But it also leaves a whole bunch of really big questions unanswered. For instance, the court specifically avoided deciding if losing your employment always counts as an injury to your business. They didn't define the full scope of property loss. They even danced around whether accidentally ingesting THC without any psychoactive effects even counts as a personal injury to begin with. Those are all legal battles for another day.
Which leaves us with this fascinating question to think about. A law that was literally created to take down powerful mob bosses has now been confirmed as a weapon for an ordinary person who lost his job over a bottle of CBD oil. It's a powerful reminder of how laws can evolve, and it really makes you wonder, what is the true purpose of a law like RICO today?